down. All around this empty town, we're searching for the lost and found. But you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air, like a blazing flare. Just stare, cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near, in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares through. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Took a swing at a wrecking ball and I prayed for my downfall, and I found a way to reconcile, 'cause in my heart it's not worthwhile. It's a bloody battlefield where some go down, others heal. In the end it's all the same. All you can do is play the game. Oh, do we say goodbye? Refuse to question why. I deserve to say I'm sorry, so lie. Pretend that you're okay. Swear that you will stay. Keep trying for one day. I'm sick of all these lies. Don't care if I capsize. There's nothing left for me to hide. Don't wanna live a lie. Too many lows, too many highs. Too many things to criticize. And so I leave it all behind. Don't wanna live a lie. Life kept spitting at my feet and forced me down a dead-end street when all I had went up in flames, burning only dark remains. I cover up every part of my skin, oh, 'cause I don't like the person within, oh, I know I'm the one to blame.
I'm switching over. Yeah, just had to get the Dr. Pepper cameo in there, didn't you? Hi, everybody on YouTube.
Sponsor us.
Yeah, we'd be like DJ Ula Galilei.
So I hope it goes better than that one.
Yeah. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. Who are your top 10 Penn State running backs of all time? Shawn and I will be drafting those tonight, and I'm sure you will think we got them wrong at some point or another. Also, we have a new commit to discuss, as well as some notes from how Penn State football spring practice is going. And, not to bury the lead, Cory Giger will be joining us. And no, it's not just because I needed Cory reinforcements on the show. All that and more in just a second. You like that?
Yeah, that was cute. I like it.
All right, I'm just trying to look up something real quick. You know, I'll say it once we start the show, I guess. But, all right. If you're on YouTube, say hi. Check in with us. Tell us what's going on. We'll read them on the show. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Cory Listoki. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How are you doing today, Shawn?
Feeling good, Cory. Feeling good. The Easter Bunny's coming for my kitty on Sunday. And just living my best life. How are you?
I keep forgetting that it is Easter Sunday. Not a huge Easter guy.
It's kind of an overrated holiday, to be honest.
Not even just from like the religion. Like, take the religion out of it for a second. Yeah. Like, my parents, like, they tried to hide eggs for a little bit, but I feel like we stopped doing that after I was like 5 or 6. Like, I feel like that was not just didn't become a tradition. We got a basket for a little bit. Then we just started getting a bunny, and then we didn't even get a bunny anymore, like a chocolate bunny.
I still get a basket.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
my parents still give me a basket.
You're way more into it than I probably might not even get a phone call or a text saying Happy Easter, to be honest with you. It's just not up there. It's not up there. We're not drafting holidays today. We're drafting Penn State running backs. But if we did do holidays, Easter would probably not make my top 10. I don't know if there's...
Well, I mean...
It'd be pretty wrong to take Columbus Day over Easter.
Yeah. for multiple reasons. Yeah. Yeah. I like the candy aspect to it, and Irish Catholic from Scranton, so I feel like it would be disrespectful to not
It
have
would
it in
be.
my top five.
Ooh, top 5 though.
Okay, so Christmas and Thanksgiving obviously are above it.
Yes, easy.
Halloween,
Yes. Does New Year's count as a holiday? Yeah.
New Year's kind of sucks. Let's be honest.
You taking Easter over New Year's?
They're the same holiday. Think about it. Like, you have to get back to work. New Year's Eve's cool. New Year's Day, it just feels like a Sunday. Like, except college football is on, which is nice. But it kind of sucks.
The day when New Year's
You
Eve
really
fell on
think about it.
when New Year's Eve fell on a Friday, that's when it's the best because then you get Thursday,
That's-
Friday, and then you get the weekend.
Yeah, you need it on the right day. Like the worst.
Easter's always Sunday. That's why Easter's far down the list for me. Like it's always on a Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not a great. It's not that great though.
Okay, how about this one for you? Would you take Memorial Day over Easter?
No, because I don't get any candy on Memorial Day.
That's true, but Memorial Day is big for me.
Most places give you Good Friday off too, so you do get a long weekend.
Well, no, not most places. Pennsylvania, and especially obviously the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. Maddie was very surprised when she went to a private school back when she was in high school. She was very surprised to find out like the world does not just shut down from Friday to Sunday over the course of Easter. Like nothing.
The stock market closes early.
Nothing happens around here very much that is crazy around Easter. So in Auburn, Alabama.
All the Christians are down there.
Yeah, that's not the same, man. It's not the same.
Do Catholics care more about Good Friday? I really don't know. Maybe they do.
Joey is in the house. Don is in the house. Don actually gave me his top 10 running backs today because I needed some inspiration. It's always good to reach out to people. I was going to mention this. Well, before we get into that, we'll have to talk about today. We're going to talk Penn State practice notes. We're going to talk about a new commit. We're going to do our draft. And then Cory Giger from DK Pittsburgh Sports will be joining us around 9 o'clock. So we're trying to fit all this other stuff in before he comes on in just 50 minutes from now. So we'll see if that actually happens or not. But what I was going to say about the draft was just in general, this whole Penn State all-time draft thing that we've done, it has been really cool, obviously, to go back and research people that you kind of forget about. But it's also been cool to go back and talk to some people that maybe you only talk to, like Don, good guy. Don't really talk to him much outside of like September to December, January, right? Because like friends through football, right? We don't talk about it, but now we got something else kind of going, and that's been it's been cool to just kind of get the perspective from my granddad and how older people view the younger players. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this kind of brings and people, people love lists. Like everybody has their top 10 all-time quarterbacks list. It's always a huge debate. Like some people have made their whole media careers around the MJ LeBron debate. So people like lists. People like going back and forth and talking about these things. And there's certain lists that we've done that kind of get people going. And running back is one of them because there have just been so many great running backs at Penn State. And it was one that I knew we were going to have to leave people off. And it was going to make people kind of mad. And I'm very interested to see what Cory did with fullbacks. Because I did it one way, but I don't know if he did it that way. So we'll have to find out.
Penn State's got a new commit. Let's start there. Because maybe a pretty solid, not sure what the right word is, between 24/7 Sports and On3 with this guy. And Penn State's new commit is Jon Mitchell, cornerback, 4-star guy from Jacksonville, Florida. His teammate, actually, Belgrave Shorter, is a potential target as well. But Jon Mitchell, I think Ryan Snyder kind of hinted from On3 that maybe he was going to commit little bit later, but it was surprised that he committed as early as he maybe did. But On3 has him highly rated. I think top 100. 24 Sports has him in a top 300, I believe, but not nearly as high. Be interested to see kind of how that plays out moving forward. I thought this was interesting, though, Shawn. I don't know if you knew this. Him and his family drove up from Florida to visit Penn State this past, what was it, last weekend? 2 weekends ago now?
It's a long drive.
Yeah. I mean, that to me says something about the level of commitment, right? Like,
Yep.
Guy from Florida, you're always going to be kind of hoping to the very end that Penn State holds on to him. But I don't know how many people drive from Florida in April to kind of meet Manny Diaz and company. But Shawn, this is a pretty big get. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying this could be, when it's all said and done, one of Penn State's number 1, number 2, number 3 best players in this entire class.
Yeah, this was big and not really expected. So, very talented guy. Like you said, On3 Sports has him as a top 100 prospect. So obviously, we at Hardcore Penn State Football have him as a top 100 overall prospect. And Penn State had to beat out a lot of good teams to be able to get him. Of course, comes without saying, when you're recruiting in the South, especially Florida, commitments mean a little less. But I still love a commitment from him. So if we could hang on to him in December, I think he's going to be one of the 4 or 5 best players in this class when it's all said and done. And that's really saying something, because I do think we're going to be adding some more talented players in the future, in the next few months coming up.
Yeah, I don't want to say this is like a done deal either. I think this is going to be one where Penn State does have to battle. Alabama's, the Florida States, they're going to throw money, literally money, at Jon Mitchell. I think it was T. Fraze on Miami on On3 that said you don't want to compare Jon Mitchell and Belgrave Shorter to King Mack and what's his face? Who's his teammate? King Mack's teammate with the Florida.
Oh, Conrad Hussey.
You don't want to make that comparison, right? Because it's kind of too obvious. But 2 defensive backs from Florida, teammates.
Yeah.
Potentially trying to get both there. So that's something to pay attention to there. I really like this pickup. I'd be very interested to see like how we feel if we're able to get Jon Mitchell back up for an official visit, what kind of ends up happening there this summer. But you got to feel good if they can get through the summer, which is saying a lot in the world of 2023 in recruiting. You feel pretty good there. Shawn, I know you want to talk about Quentin Martin. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so good news. Last weekend, Quentin Martin and his family came up, and from all reports, it was an awesome visit. Seemed like, his parents and everything really liked, they've always liked the place, but Penn State was really selling his parents. And we have from Rivals.com 2 future casts for Penn State. And it's awesome news. So Penn State pretty much the leader now. And Quentin Martin, for those of you who don't know, number 1 player in the state of Pennsylvania. He might end up as a safety, but he could be a running back. I don't think it's 100% sure where he'd play if he came to Penn State. But he would be huge pickup, and you want to be able to beat out Pitt. Pitt's probably going to throw the kitchen sink, everything in the kitchen sink to try to keep him home. And Ohio State's in the picture, and Ohio State is on fire right now in the recruiting trail, and they have a lot of NIL money, and they have the brand. So if Penn State's able to beat both those teams, they probably end up with Martin. And from what we understand right now, Penn State should be looked at as the leader. And I don't know about you, Cory, but I like being in the lead for the number 1 player in the state.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Penn State, I was going to say, is currently ranked 13th nationally with their 2024 class. Michigan has been on fire lately with some commits. Ohio State picked up yet another 5-star wide receiver. just crazy fact for you when we talk about, just remember this now when you're listening to us on October 21st or whenever the game is this fall. Ohio State has now received commitments from 18 4- or 5-star receivers in the past 6 recruiting classes. Just remember that when we're talking about how much of a hard matchup they are. Just kind of keep that in mind. I could go down the rabbit hole and recruit, Sean. I don't want to go there too much. Ryan Snyder from On3 did mention Blake Frazier, offensive tackle from Texas, 4-star guy. Dad went to Michigan. Everyone thought he was a Michigan sold to go. But Ryan Snyder kind of made it seem not as maybe likely as maybe that if he does go to Michigan, that's not why. But he thinks maybe he wants to kind of pave his own path. So keep an eye on Blake Frazier. And then I just wanted to mention Taysir Denmark, the receiver from Philly, was supposed to visit. He's currently committed to Oregon. He was supposed to visit, and he did not visit for one reason or another. So, you would think at some point a guy from Philly is going to come back to Penn State, whether that's this summer, whether it's State College for a football game this fall, but did not make the trip there. Jordan Thomas, I was going to mention, defensive line from Don Bosco. This is probably the number one target for Penn State defensive line-wise. One that Deion Barnes would make Deion Barnes look really, really good as a promotion hire. Just visited. He did visit Georgia on January 28th, but he hadn't been at Penn State since over a year. So good to get him back on. 4-star guy, number 1 player from New Jersey. Does that sound right? I think so. And Don on YouTube says they're recruiting Martin as a running back because that's what he wants to play, according to everything he's read.
You got it.
Speaking of that, Penn State speaking of running back, we're going to be talking about running back a lot in a second, but also Penn State still only has 2 running backs, scholarship running backs on their roster. Sean, here's what I'm thinking before you get to any other recruiting things. I think we hold off on the practice update until we can talk about that with Cory Giger, kind of, and we do the draft after you kind of wrap up any last recruiting notes. Does that sound like a plan to you?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I think somebody to keep an eye on too is Michael Van Buren. He's the 4-star quarterback. I think Penn State is in a good place with him. Not sure that's going to end anytime soon though. So, yeah, things are going to start picking up here, and I'm interested to see who comes up for the blue-white game. Maybe Taysir Denmark decides to show up. It's not a great thing that he is supposed to come to campus and he didn't end up coming, and he is committed to Oregon right now. But you never know. The recruiting season is still young, and he's a Pennsylvania guy, so maybe he comes back around. And if, like we learned last year with Kavion Keys and many recruits of many years before, don't give up on a guy who likes you, because they might just come back.
The Kavion Keys recruitment, although I tend to forget about him for some reason now that he's actually on the Penn State roster, that recruitment was probably, well, obviously we haven't been doing this very long together, but still, to me, one of the craziest. I really thought Penn State was completely just no chance, and they were able to swing that one. That one was an amazing get for me, just to watch that one unfold. Can I break a little bit of news, Sean?
Yeah, do I know this news?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
It's hardcore Penn State related news.
Okay.
So obviously I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks on a trip to Europe in May. And so we're not going to have the YouTube video, live stream while I'm gone. But we're obviously going to try to fill that with some interviews. And I think we've officially got one of those interviews. We haven't exactly set up when it's going to be yet, but he has agreed to come on to the show. And that will be, I know, one of Sean's favorite players of all time, and Mr. Michael Motti.
Really?
Did you not know that? Did you not know that?
No.
I texted it to you in the group chat.
Okay, there are lots of things said in the group chat. Let me see.
Yeah. But anyway, so he'll be coming on. I don't know when we're going to record it but it'll be posted sometime towards the middle or end of May. So that's something to look forward to. Obviously, we're going to be talking a lot about name, image, and likeness and what Penn State needs to do moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that. I thought you knew about it already.
No, you're seeing my live reaction. I mean, I've been working 2 jobs and working damn near 60 hours a week, so.
Inexcusable. When I text you, you should stop everything and read it. Anyway, I thought you'd like that. I thought people reading would like that. So, I mean, I don't know if everyone saw the feud between Jay Paterno and Mike Motti on Twitter. Obviously, we had Jay Paterno on. I think it's also, since we're just obviously the most professional reporters in the world, it's good to have both sides. So we'll be excited to have Motti on. And also, he's just a Penn State legend for a lot of different reasons. So, anyway, okay, we have, Shawn, can we do this? We got 38 minutes to do the Penn State. I think we can do it.
Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, it usually takes about a half hour.
Yeah. 38 minutes to draft Penn State all-time running backs. Don says, can you get Motti and Jay for a joint interview? We've thought about doing it. We might be able to. So was that Higgins who said that we should do something like that?
Yeah. I think my friend Mike Rurbeck suggested that too. Yeah.
We could try. I don't know. I wouldn't want to lose Motti because of that, but we could try. We could throw it out there.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be Motti who would probably say no to that, would be my guess.
No, I actually think Mike Motti would love to talk to Jay. It just I don't know if both parties would be interested in that. We should try to get Lebrano on here.
I thought you were about to say LeBron James.
One day we'll get Lebrano. Maybe we'll try to get Bronny too.
You started saying LeBron, and I was like,
how do you say his name? Lubrano?
No, I think you said it right, but I just heard La, and I'm like, is he about to say LeBron?
I mean, sure.
All right. Oh, so here's the thing. I feel like I've won a lot of coin tosses, and I really would take all of the last couple ones that I won in order to go first in this one. I would really like to go first in this one.
So would I. I'm very interested to see who you'd pick. I think I know, but I'm not positive.
Obviously, let us know on YouTube how we're going here. I think I called it last time. I'll let you call it. How about that? Because you haven't won for a while. Can you? Nope. You can't see. It's just white.
All right. I'm gonna call heads.
Okay. It's not even showing up at all. It's flipping. It's tails.
God damn it. Okay.
It's really not showing up today, is it? Sometimes it shows up a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes I can see it pretty well, but not today.
Not today. You are like 0 for 4, I think. Like, I've won a bunch of coin tosses lately. It's been pretty insane.
I always pick tails, and it always fails for me.
I was going to say it was tails this time, but you picked heads, right?
Yeah,
okay. Just want to make sure.
I tried to reverse everything.
Okay. I was like, it is tails, but no. Okay.
All right. Who do you got?
I'm so happy I got to go first. I almost feel like people think I rigged it. Penn State all-time running back draft. Shawn lost the coin toss yet again, so I'll be drafting first. And with my first pick, in my opinion, you can't really go wrong with 1 or 2. I don't know if you feel the same way, Shawn, but I really feel like 1 and 2 really stand out to me. But with my first pick, that's my first pick, Saquon Barkley. Look, people are going to say recency bias. I think who you're going to take with your second pick, you could make the argument for that person, or there's maybe a third person there too. But at the end of the day, at least for me, I got to see Saquon Barkley live, sometimes in the front row, and the things he was able to do, the slipperiness of it, the all-time leader as a non-quarterback in yards, in touchdowns, with the offensive line that he had, without a doubt the best Penn State running back as far as a pass catcher goes. I know there's 2 or 3 guys on the list that are really good, but otherwise there was a bunch of Penn State running backs that really weren't anything crazy as far as catching out of the backfield goes that are probably going to make the list. Saquon was the best at that. He was so versatile. He had strength, he had speed, he had the home run ability. It's pretty obvious. Saquon Barkley, number 1. And again, it really makes a difference that I was able to see him in person as many times as I did. And he's a good guy. So, boom.
He was my first pick too. And yeah, there's really not enough good things to say about him. He's perfect back. I mean, just awesome player. Like I said, would have been my first pick too, but Cory always wins the coin toss, so he's not my pick. So anyhow, I do have a pretty good one for the second pick. So for my first pick, I'm gonna go with Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner, Cory surprised. So Kurt Warner, part of the 1982 national championship team, 2 times going over 1,000 yards, very productive pro career. Yeah, he is. He's my pick. And yeah,
I watched Kurt Warner film.
He was also
today.
a 2-time All-American.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Natty, 2-time All-American, all sorts of stuff.
College Football Hall of Fame.
When he left, he was the all-time rusher at the time.
Yep.
No, I love the Kurt Warner pick. Like I said, I was watching film on Kurt Warner today, and forgot how explosive he was.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the guys from back then that I still think would be really good.
Yeah.
So
he was some, like, I watched some film, and we'll obviously talk about some of these other guys in a second, but I watched some film and I was like, okay, like, yeah, you were okay for your error, but
yeah, he translates really well.
Yeah. And there's a couple guys, hopefully, that I land on my list that I would feel just as good about too. So we'll see. I'm really excited because I had Kurt Warner 3, to be honest with you. And I had who I thought you were really going to take, because I thought you're a big fan of his. I really thought it was a no-brainer for you. But I'm taking Kajana Carter with my second pick. 34 total touchdowns, averaged 7.2 yards per carry. If it wasn't for Joe being a decent guy, I think he could have probably ran for a gazillion. Another guy that translates, like, not that was that long ago in 1994, but another guy that would still play really well today. And again, if he just didn't have such a great offense at other skill positions, quarterback, wide receiver, etc., tight end, and he got more carries, he could have even been more lethal. The numbers are fantastic. Almost 3,000 yards, etc. But, man, he could have even had more. Number 1 overall pick. And I believe he made your impactful draft as far as Penn State impactful recruits.
He did.
So if that's not an accolade, I don't know what is. I think it was your second pick on Sean Kane's impactful Penn State recruit list. So Kajana Carter, number 2 for me.
Yeah, so Kajana's in my top 5. He is not number 3, though.
Wow.
He is number 4. Yeah.
So we did differ there a little bit.
We did, and Kajana was awesome. I will remind everybody, though, Kajana kind of had everything perfect around him. He had the best offensive line ever at Penn State. He had the best quarterback ever at Penn State. He had maybe the best receiver ever at Penn State. So, I mean, and this isn't to poo-poo him. He was awesome. But he just had perfect conditions. And I just thought Kurt Warner, he had the same kind of speed that Kajana had, but I liked him cutting more. I just thought he could go east-west a little bit better than Kajana could. So
I think that's fair. We didn't say this about Kurt Warner, but I really wanted to. Kind of outshined Herschel Walker in the
he
national
did.
championship, which I think is important to kind of say.
He did.
I will say this, Sean. You took Kerry Collins with your first pick when we did the quarterbacks draft, and you had no issue doing that as far as perfect scenario, having all the other pieces. So I'm going to call you out there a little bit. But anyway.
Well, okay, but who are you gonna put above Collins? That's fair, but who are you gonna put above?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's kind of like a Tom Brady scenario.
All right. Well, now I'm really curious
because
you had him 4, so
fourth.
Really you're going to be getting your second and your third pick right here.
Yes. Yep. Didn't get my first, but I'm gonna go with Lydell Mitchell. So Lydell, for those of you who don't know, he played a while ago. 1971 All-American, ran for almost 1,600 yards in only 11 games. Joe Paterno said he was one of the best. He was maybe the best football player he's ever coached. 26 rushing touchdowns in 1 year in just 11 games. I mean, man, oh man. Capoletti was actually his backup. So that's how good Lydell Mitchell was. Yeah, I just haven't. But like, you could go either way with him and Kajana. I will bang the table on saying Kurt Warner was better than Kajana, but Lydell Mitchell and Kajana, I feel like he could go either way. So I'm going with Lydell Mitchell for my next pick.
Interesting. Because I think, in my opinion, I have 1, 2, 3 of Saquon, Kurt Warner, and Kajana kind of in their own category. And then I have Lydell and this guy and maybe 1 or 2 other guys kind of in the next category. I had Lydell 5th. So realistically, we're kind of getting all the people we wanted right now. With my third pick, I'm going to take Lenny Moore, 1953, 1955. Got over 2,000 yards rushing, 23 touchdowns, 2-time All-American. Joe Paterno called him, quote, the best all-around player he coached. The Reading Rocket, 6 Pro Bowls, ended up being, I don't know how long ago the NFL did their like top 100 players of all time, but came in at number 94 all-time players in the NFL at 94. And this dude, which is just crazy, because you can watch Lenny Moore Colts highlights, and then you can watch Lydell Mitchell Colts highlights. And if like you didn't know the numbers and maybe the quality of the film wasn't crazy different, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. Those dudes both were catching balls out of the backfield like constantly in the NFL. It was really fun to watch. The Lydell Mitchell, I seriously don't understand. Like, I feel like Lydell Mitchell ran the same route in the NFL every play over the middle, and no one ever picked him up. It was just awful. But anyway, Lenny Moore, a little bit before Joe was head coach there. But yeah, I like Lenny Moore and Lydell Mitchell, in my opinion, both translate to now. Like, they both could catch they were before the Marshall Faulks of the world, but those guys I think could totally play in the 2020 world of college football.
Yeah, as do I. Like, Lenny Moore is, he is the best Penn State running back ever in the pros. Like, he's better than even Saquon is. And I think our Giants fans might fight me on that, but the guy's an NFL Hall of Famer. He's one of the top 100 players ever. So,
Great nickname. Nicknames help. Also,
yeah.
Like, when did we get so unoriginal? Like, everyone that was a good running back, especially running backs in the NFL, had great nicknames. And like, we just don't do that. Like, Doug Martin was like the muscle hamster. Like, that was like the last decent nickname for anybody. Like, we don't do that anymore. That's a shame.
Yeah, that's a good question. Good question.
This is where it gets spicy. I'm excited from here on out, baby.
Cory, Penn State is, so even though I do not consider Penn State a blue blood, we've had that conversation. I do think they're definitely a top 10 program of all time. One of the things that Penn State is definitely shorthanded on is Heisman trophies. We only have 1 Heisman Trophy winner. And the bizarre thing is he's in neither of our top 5 at his position. But he is my next pick. So with my next pick, I'm picking John Cappelletti, the Italian Stallion. 1,500 yards in 1973, 17 touchdowns. Like I said, Penn State's one and only Heisman Trophy winner. Just awesome career. Also, the year before he won the Heisman, he ran for 1,100 yards. So, can't really beat that. 17 touchdowns in only 11 games. So, yeah, I'm going with Cappy. My third, I have 3 picks. Yeah, third pick.
I think John Cappelletti is really where the polarization of this list comes into play, because depending on how much you value that Heisman, really, and it doesn't even matter, right? If whenever Penn State gets a second Heisman, he will always be the first. So that makes he will always have the first no matter what.
His number's retired.
And his number's retired. I had that written down too. He's the only guy that have that as well. Good Heisman Trophy speech, by the way. I don't know if you could
go and watch that if you don't have it. Gerald Ford was there, by the way.
I'm gonna be honest with you though, I had him 9th.
I could see it. I don't think that's outrageous.
I watched Cappelletti film today, and it was literally like whoever put it up on YouTube had you could still hear the film actually, and it was aggravating. I had to mute it. It was awful.
That probably threw you off.
And I like him. We're talking about translating to the new level, and I know that's not the only part of this list.
Yeah, I think he's the one guy that I'm like, eh.
He wouldn't be. He would be making subs downtown for somebody. He wouldn't be on this current Penn State football team. No offense.
The disrespect.
No offense. All right, I'm excited because I'm about to get my number 6 player with the 7th pick. So I'm feeling really good right now. Again, another guy who could be polarizing because he only had one really outstanding season, and that's Larry Johnson. 2002 season. The best single season by a running back besides maybe Lydell Mitchell, but close.
He might have, yeah. He could have won the Heisman too.
Yeah. 7.7 yards per carry, which I don't know if you knew this, Shawn, was higher than Barry Sanders' 1988 yards per carry season.
Did not know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Pulling out the fun facts for you. Over 2,000 yards, 20 touchdowns that year. All-American. He didn't win the Heisman. Won the Doak Walker Award. Also, I don't know if it was that same year or not. But he also, I think it was the year prior, but he blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown. Did you know that in his career?
No.
Yeah,
no, I don't.
I was watching Larry Johnson highlights, and whoever had it included his blocked punt for a touchdown. He blocked it and returned it for a touchdown. So, look, Larry Johnson, again, only one fantastic season. It makes you kind of wonder what if. But, I mean, I put his film on today, and it was like taking me back. I love how, some people considered him like a bruiser because of his strength. Yeah. And to me, I never viewed him that way. I always thought he had enough Getty up to take it the distance, but he was often labeled as a bruiser, and I never felt that way. But obviously, he could lay the wood too. So I'm ecstatic getting LJ with pick number 4.
Yeah. I feel like Penn State fans, the way that they love Saquon, just love Saquon. Because he's such a great guy and everything. Larry is one of those guys that I think people kind of look over because his personality. I mean, look him up, but the guy is troubled. Let's just put it that way. And honestly, he's really not a good guy, to be completely honest with you. But he had the best ever season at Penn State. And you can't take that away from him. He could have won the Heisman Trophy. He only got ever run for over 2,000 yards at Penn State. And he was a good pro for a few years. And then injuries happened, and he's himself. So, yeah, I had Larry next. Really hoping Cory would overlook him and reach for, like, I don't know, Tony Hunt or something. But Cory didn't. He's a smart Penn State fan. So, with my next pick, I am going with the all-time leading rusher at Penn State, Evan Rolls-Royce Royster. So Royster, I believe he's the only Penn State running back to ever rush for over 1,000 yards 3 times. Just a model of consistency. And, I mean, there's a reason why he has that record. And also, he also was an awesome lacrosse player. So, great athlete. Didn't last long in the NFL. And, yeah, I think the one complaint I'd have about Evan Royster, and the reason I think he's a little bit lower than these other guys, is it felt like he kind of stayed the same at Penn State. If you go back and watch his freshman highlights, they don't look really any different from his senior highlights. He just kind of stayed the same. Like, even Saquon got better from his freshman year, and Kajana certainly got better from his freshman year. And it just never felt like Royster really did. Now, you could also look at it and say, though, he stayed consistent, which he absolutely did. He never got worse, but he just was consistently really, really good. So I'm very happy with getting Penn State's first Heisman Trophy winner and their all-time leading rusher.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't even have him remotely touching my top 10.
Why?
Just didn't have that it factor, didn't have that shimmy. Like, just at no point was I ever blown away by anything. And I was actually at the game where he broke that record against Michigan, but it was never a true star. Never really took over games the way I think some of the other Penn State running backs on this list did. And to me, that plays a big role. I mean, again, credit him for durability and consistency, like you said. But the only reason he has that record is because he had 500 yards in his redshirt freshman year, and then he was able to have 3 years without anyone else really competing with him from his sophomore to senior year. Are you looking at me like that?
No. To rush for over 3,000 yards, though, 3 straight years, that's not something that... Or to rush over 1,000 yards 3 straight years. Nobody just goes and does it. DJ Dozier only did it once.
Only did what once?
He only rushed for over 1,000 yards once.
He still ended up with over... He only ended up with a couple hundred less yards than Royster did.
Yeah, but he didn't do it. And I get what you're saying, though, because the thing with Royster is I think when people put him like as an all-time great, and I think there's levels to this, I wouldn't, because what Cory said is actually true. He didn't really have that it factor. I don't think opposing teams went into games and they're like, how are we going to stop Evan Royster? Like, I don't think that really crossed opposing fans' heads.
That to me,
when they played Saquon, everybody was terrified of Saquon. Larry Johnson, everybody was terrified of Larry Johnson. Evan Royster really didn't have that. They're like, he's good. Yeah, he could go for 130 yards, and he often did. But were defensive coordinators waking up in a cold sweat over Evan Royster? No.
Right.
No. And that's fair.
It's funny that you bring up Mr. William Henry, because I'm taking DJ Dozier as my final pick, which I think is actually probably a little bit of a reach compared to most people. He made the list for some. He didn't make the list for others. Some people had him as honorable mentions that we talked to. I just remember watching some DJ Dozier games when I was a kid and didn't know any better, and I loved watching DJ Dozier play. He has a national championship, was the 14th pick overall in the NFL draft, 5.2 yards per carry, 25 total touchdowns, over 3,000 yards in his career. And I thought, like, maybe not as much as those other guys, but I thought he had enough strength and also just enough wiggle to where I thought he was explosive, right? There's a lot of these guys maybe aren't, like Evan Royster, not explosive in my opinion. I thought Dozier had some breakout runs, could make guys miss in space. That was kind of one of the things when I was like going back in film. If they were making that first guy miss, that was kind of a big thing to me. Whether it was in space, a stiff arm, run him over, I don't care. But like John Cappelletti, unfortunately, wasn't making that first guy miss as much as I wanted when I was watching film. DJ Dozier was doing it for me time and time. I'd take DJ Dozier over John Cappelletti any day of the week. But that's just me. And I think I kind of romanticize a little bit about DJ Dozier. But then you see what DJ Dozier did compared to like what Blair Thomas then does. And I think if I had to choose between DJ Dozier and Blair Thomas, I'm taking DJ Dozier every day of the week over Blair Thomas. And I don't think it's even really that close. No offense to Blair Thomas. Anyway, I'm a big DJ Dozier fan. I actually didn't think I was going to be able to get him as well as some of these other guys. So I'm really ecstatic. I ended up, Shawn, just so you can feel good for me, I ended up with 5 out of my top 7 picks.
Congratulations.
I do want to say, Don had you said you got to have the program's all-time leading rusher on the list. He had him 10th on his list.
Yeah, and I'm cool with that. Like going back, I probably would have had I'm very happy with who I get with my last pick. And that's Curtis Enis. So Curtis Enis, just he was such a big dude. Like we always thought, like you were talking about with Larry Johnson, like Curtis was massive. And he had a little bit of wiggle. And he was fast, just a powerful runner. 2 times he ran for over 1,200 yards. Really didn't have. I think he had the last years of Wally Richardson, and then Mike McQueary was his quarterback at 97. So he never really had a dynamic passing attack to go with him, and he carried those Penn State offenses. And him and his backmate Aaron Harris, I should say, also carried those offenses back then. And yeah, fun guy to watch. Had an unfortunate pro career. I think he had a knee injury. I think that's what happened to him. Is similar to Kajana, and he just never really got off the ground after that. So even though he was a first-round pick. So Curtis Enis, and he's another guy, like compared to a guy like Evan Royster, the defensive coordinators did stay up worrying about how are we going to stop Curtis Enis. And when you have a guy that rushes for 6 yards a carry, that's going to be why.
Yeah. I watched some of his film today too, and I had him on the list. I didn't have him as high as I think you did. But I'm curious, Shawn. Where'd you have Franco?
Honorable mention.
Yeah.
He wasn't that good at Penn State.
I had him 8th on my list, and I think it was more of like a look, he had 24 touchdowns, but he was never the full-time running back. I did include his NFL career, and also I got to meet the guy in person, and he was nice to everybody he met, and so that gave him a boost in my rankings. Because he
charmed you.
Yeah, he charmed me. He did.
Rest in peace.
And so he got a little bit of a bump because of that. I actually had him over John Cappelletti. But I'm really curious, where did you have Tony Hunt?
Also honorable mention.
But like, was he border? Like, how close in the honorable mention? Yeah, he was
close. He was 12th, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, because I had him 10, and I was adamant that I was going to take Tony Hunt with my last pick, and it just so happened that you took Royster, and I didn't have Royster high on my list, so that kind of threw things out of whack a little bit. But I really wanted Tony Hunt. I think Tony Hunt is really underrated. And if all the other things about Tony Hunt that you probably already know, he also went to the same high school that Remember the Titans was filmed.
I did know that.
What else do you need?
So you would take him over Royster.
I would take Tony Hunt over Evan Royster. I would. And I get the argument of the all-time leading rusher.
I love Tony Hunt too,
but pure running back, and also you got to remember he was there like the years I was falling in love with Penn State football, and I think that plays a pretty big role. Like, especially the 06. So
do you remember Austin Scott?
Yeah, I had Austin. Well, we talked about Austin Scott
Well, Austin Scott was like the big 5-star running back, and
Right.
Tony Hunt beat him out. I mean, just nobody thought Tony Hunt was going to start over, but then he just took the reins and never let him go.
He had we mentioned Austin Scott as an honorable mention for like impactful recruits as far as letdown goes.
Right.
We had him on that list. What other guys? I think those. What about a couple of Aaron Harris? I saw Don mention on YouTube. I had Aaron Harris. We tweeted the run against Ohio State in 1997. Wally Triplett, was he anywhere near anything as a fun little?
Honestly, I didn't even think of Wally Triplett. Does that make me a bad Penn State fan?
I don't know. I it took me a while to come up with him, to be fair.
I'm sorry.
Eric Magoo, Richie Anderson.
Eric McCoo. I mean, I liked Eric McCoo. Eric McCoo is probably the first Penn State running back I remember. So I definitely hold him in some high regard. You see, here's my thing with the Larry Johnson thing. It's my Joe Paterno conspiracy. I think Joe knew Larry was better than McCoo. And Joe just didn't play Larry Johnson because he was so immature. But the thing where I would criticize,
I think that was true.
Where I would criticize Joe is, and I think, and far be it to me to criticize Joe's philosophy, but I'm going to. If the guy is such a headache that you're not going to play him, then why are you having him on the team? You should kick him off the team then. If he's such a headache, you can't play him, because then you just have him sitting there. And Eric McCoo, good back. He wasn't Larry Johnson, though. Like, Larry Johnson, yeah, he only had one great year because that was the only year he was on challenge. I think his backup was a guy named Mike Gasparotto. So, just a random guy. I mean,
that's where John Capoletti would have been.
Yeah, I think Capoletti's grandson was his backup. I mean, he wasn't gonna. He obviously had to play him then. So that's where I would disagree. That's where I would disagree with Joe a little bit. Like, Larry should have been the starter, at least starting in 2000 or 2001. Maybe not 99 because he just got there, but at least in 2000 or 2001.
Aaron Harris and Journey Brown, to me,
Journey's an honorable mention for me, yeah, because he would have been on it. He could have been on it. Could have been on it.
I think both of those guys could have been potentially on it, if they were able to kind of just stay healthy.
What do you think of Silas Red?
Someone tweeted not too long ago, and maybe you'd heard this before, but I had never heard this before. Have you ever seen or heard of anyone calling him Silas Fled? That's fantastic.
Message boards.
Someone tweeted us that, which I had not seen that before, and I thought that was really funny. Silas Red, from a talent perspective, probably a top 10 guy as far as like shake and bake and just jumping off the page at you. But you know, that isn't always enough.
No, and he wasn't here long enough. So
now, if he would have stayed, Zach Zwinak's able to get 1,000 yards. Imagine what Silas Red's able to do.
You think Zwinak's an honorable mention?
No, I don't. I'm just saying,
either.
If Zach Zwinak's able to get 1,000 yards, I bet
Silas I saw his name discussed on Twitter. I just didn't know if you wanted to that. I didn't.
I did not. I loved what he was able to. 1,000 yards for him was impressive, but
he was pretty good.
Joey House says no Blair Thomas. Yeah, I had Blair Thomas 12th.
Blair is an honorable. No, Blair was actually in my top 10. Actually,
was he?
Yeah,
I really thought pre-injury Blair Thomas, I think, could be a top 10 guy, maybe. After his injury, I just don't think he had the same speed or wiggle. There was a couple times I was watching Blair Thomas film yesterday. There was a couple of times Blair Thomas gets into space and you're like, okay, here we go. And then he just doesn't make anybody miss, doesn't make anyone look foolish. And I got a list of 10 guys on here that make everyone look foolish when they get in space. And Blair Thomas didn't do that enough for me. No offense.
Well, I'm not going to say it that way. I'll say it. Well, the Jets thought high enough for them to take him in the top 5, and
Yeah.
it didn't work.
He did average 8.4 yards per carry his freshman year, for what that's worth.
He was awesome. Like one of the game my dad's told me about this. Penn State was hosting Alabama, and Blair Thomas was having a great game, and we decided to kick for the win instead of handing it to Blair Thomas again. And Blair was just gashing them, and we kicked it from like the 5-yard line and missed the field goal and lost the game. And I think you would see I think you would see my brain melt on the podcast if something like that happened today. So, yeah. He had a very good career at Penn State though. So
yeah,
I put him
when
in
it was
the top
all said
10,
and done,
but he's close.
Yeah, over 3,000 yards. I mean, you get over that 3,000 yard mark, you're in elite territory, in my opinion. So no doubt about that.
What about where do you have Miles?
Okay, it's funny you bring up Miles, right? And then Charlie Pittman was the only other person I had on my list that
Yeah.
didn't really talk
Charlie
about.
Pittman's an honorable mention, yeah.
That I really feel like we should have. Miles Sanders, from a talent perspective, definitely probably a borderline top 15 guy. You could, like, from a talent perspective, I'm taking Miles Sanders over John Capoletti and Evan Royster and probably DJ Dozier. Hell, probably even Curtis Enos. Like,
I don't know about Enos, but all the other guys I would have. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I won't fight you on that. Like, Miles Sanders was a stud, and if he just doesn't show up right after Saquon, I think everyone looks at him a lot differently. But he's 100% should be an honorable mention. I'd take Miles Sanders over a lot of those other guys on that honorable mention list for sure. So, yeah. But that's what happens. You're the running back after the number 1 running back on both of our lists. Like, that's exactly what happens, right?
Yeah, like, remember that run against Michigan State he had? Where
yes,
it was as impressive as anything Saquon did, honestly. And I mean, there I go again. I'm comparing him to Saquon, but that's kind of what you did at that time. And I tried my best in 2018 not to compare him to Saquon because I knew Saquon was like an alien coming down and playing at Penn State. Like, you kind of can't compare him to other people. The thing that drove me nuts about Miles was how often he fumbled, though. And I forgot about play in the 18 Ohio State game as Miles fumbling. Early, it was in the first half. We were playing better than Ohio State. We were driving. We could have went up 2 scores, and Miles fumbles. And it felt like he just did that a lot. And again, maybe that's a Saquon thing because Saquon never fumbled. And we get Miles, and he still has fumbleitis to this day. It's one of his big problems. So, but just in terms of talent, in terms of being, a pretty good back in his own right, yeah, I think he's top 20, but I probably wouldn't have him near the top 10.
So things on YouTube, Joey House says that DJ Dozier, and yeah, they did share the same backfield. Said he rushed for more yards than DJ. I don't care. I do not care. I like Dozier more. And Don also says, Shawn, you're talking about the 89 Alabama game, and the field goal was actually blocked.
It was blocked. There you go.
We should have Cory Giger joining us momentarily, which I don't know if I'm actually prepared 100% for that, so we'll see. I think I got to remember I think I know what I actually have to do that. But I guess I can stop. Are you get all your honorable mentions done? We good there?
Yeah, we're all good. I think we did that right by 9 o'clock. So
yeah, I knew it was going to take us
about
by
us.
30. I mean, that's a lot to flesh out there, for sure. But that was a fun one for sure. I don't come back next week. What have we not done on defense? Secondary, we did defensive line.
We have to do the linebackers.
Oh God.
And that's going to be painful.
Okay, I guess we'll be back next week to do linebackers.
Ooh, here we go.
I mean, it's fun to go down that route and talk about it with everybody on Twitter, and like I said, so appreciate everyone on Twitter reaching out to us. We got a lot of good answers on Twitter, a lot of good feedback, and appreciate Don and Joey on YouTube messaging us as well. Don even says he likes Blair over DJ too. And that's where I just disagree. And again, I told you guys I was reaching on DJ when I prefaced the whole thing by saying I was reaching on DJ and I didn't care because I liked him. So you guys can suck it.
Are you blinded a little bit by the go-ahead touchdown in the Fiesta Bowl?
No, I don't think I am.
Because
like I said,
arguably, I would say he scored the biggest touchdown ever at Penn State. Probably was, if you think
Garrity?
about it like that. Maybe. Yeah, that was the first one. Well, 1A, 1B. I mean, and he had that moment. So, and that was the biggest moment out of anybody on this list.
Yeah. Did Blair Thomas have that moment? No.
Blair Thomas played awesome in the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, Blair, again, nothing. I had Blair Thomas on my
That
list.
Holiday Bowl is so fun to watch.
You guys are acting like Blair Thomas, like I was telling everyone he's garbage. I just didn't like him as much. While we wait for Cory to join us, we can talk other Penn State practice news in the meantime. I guess I have more housekeeping items. Another surprise for everybody. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 Eastern with PSU Dylan to talk some recruiting. And, is there breaking news? I think there might be breaking news, everybody. I think there might be breaking news. Yes, we have breaking news. Trey Potts has committed to Penn State.
Hey,
that's big time right there.
That is huge. So we have 3 backs. We just said that we only have 2 scholarship backs. Now we have 3. And I'm a Trey Potts fan. I'm very happy with that.
So Penn State, we just we were talking about running backs, and we summoned a 3rd scholarship running back from the transfer portal live on YouTube. I like Trey Potts. We talked about how he visited and last week, and we're like, okay, that's a good sign, but we hadn't heard much about it. And then boom. So Penn State gets their 3rd running back now, and that's actually a huge get. We talked a lot a month or 2 ago about needing that 3rd running back, and now they have him. Again, Shawn mentioned this last time, former Williamsport millionaire. So he's coming home.
That's right. He was a millionaire.
BZM has joined us as well on YouTube. How you doing, BZM? But
that's awesome. I'm very happy with that.
That's very good. Very, very good. I should make sure I'm following the man on Twitter. What I was talking about before that was we have PSU Dylan on Instagram joining us tomorrow to talk recruiting. If you don't know who PSU Dylan is, he is one with the team, one with the recruits. Very, very big following on Instagram. He's actually helping with the Clifford's Limitless NIL as well. So he'll be on tomorrow to talk recruiting, talk a little bit about the team. Really excited for that because that's going to be a little bit of a different perspective, Shawn.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of, I feel like, the first person who's kind of he's more involved, like he's involved with Limitless and everything. But I feel like more of a peer for Cory and I, like somebody who isn't a journalist, we don't claim to be journalists here, but we don't call ourselves fan accounts though. And I feel like PSU Dylan's the same thing. He actually does work with the team, and he's pretty connected. So I'm excited for that.
Yes. Well, let's get into news while we wait for Cory Giger to join. I know he's accepted the thing because I see that his name has been added to the list. So he should be joining momentarily. But Penn State was practicing yesterday. Got some more updates for you. What we told you about long snapper, by the way, that's pretty much all but done. Kazansky is going to be the guy at long snapper. We mentioned that, I believe, in the last episode. They did get outside to punt, Sean, so you don't have to worry about the punting anymore. They were able to get out and punt outside. I know you probably stayed up all night wondering why the punters couldn't go outside even when everyone else was inside. And according to Sean Fitz on YouTube, the punting battle is not going to be decided in the spring. He already said that, which I thought was kind of crazy for him to say that already. Which kind of I don't want to say red flag yet, but I'm putting the orange flag up. I'm putting the caution flag up because
maybe it's because they're both really good.
Well, apparently they have legs. The young guys have young guys. I say that like Riley Thompson's young. Thompson and Paqueta have the leg, but they haven't apparently gotten the consistency that they want yet. Is what we're hearing there. So punting not great. I think Nwosu has pretty much locked down the kickoff duties. I think there's some consistency that probably needs to be shown there as well. Kicking, I don't think is probably anywhere. I didn't get a specific update on kicking, but kicking I don't think is anywhere from being over either.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried. I'm not gonna lie. At least it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cory. In the spring last year, did Barney pretty much have the punting job locked up, or did that not happen till the summer? Because I know at some point he took a stranglehold on it. I don't remember. If it was
I don't think that was done in the spring.
Okay, so I guess that makes me feel better because I thought Barney was pretty good last year.
He started out red hot. I thought
he was awesome.
At the end, I thought he was above average, but at the beginning, he was like, "Oh man, did they really, strike lightning twice?" Kind of vibe for a second there.
Yeah, he got us out of trouble, and he was helpful, and I liked him overall. So that makes me feel a little bit better. And you're not gonna have Blake Gillikin, and you're not gonna have Stout. You're not gonna have Jordan Stout every year. But I just hope the guy could be, whoever it is, ends up being good enough.
All right. Cory Giger said he's having some technical difficulties, so see if I can help him out here.
Oh. Looks like we got someone in here.
Oh, looks like we do have somebody in here. It just took me having to begin to figure things out, and then we get him in there. Can you hear us, Cory?
I can hear you guys. I promise this was not my fault. I'm not pulling a Neil Riddell here where I don't know what the hell's going on with technology. I was here. It just wasn't logging on.
How's it going?
Fantastic. I appreciate you guys having me on. Let's talk some football, man.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm going to work on our screens here for a second, but Sean, if you want to get started.
Yeah. I mean, first off, we're really excited to have you, Cory. So, something Cory Listokey and I were just talking about was special teams. What should our concern level be for special teams right now? Because I got to tell you, I'm at about a 7 or 8 out of 10.
Every discussion I think that we have along these lines has to be tempered with, well, what's the goal? Well, the goal is to get to the playoff, right? So are you going to go to Columbus and beat Ohio State on a last-second field goal? I mean, that's so when you ask the concern about the special teams, I would say it's almost with anything. Are you good enough to go 11-1 or to win in Columbus and get to the playoff? Are they good enough? Are their special teams good enough to go 9-3? Sure. Are they good enough to go 11-1 and win in Columbus? That I always start every discussion with what's the expectation.
Yeah, and I mean, I think every Penn State fan's expectation is, at least, I should say my expectation is, that we find a way to beat Michigan or Ohio State, and you have to try to at least win 10 games, because I think Penn State fans would be disappointed with another year of going 10-2. I mean, I think we'd be fine with it, but they really want to get that Michigan or Ohio State win. So, yeah, I think to win 10-plus games, if your special teams is just abysmal, it's going to be hard to even get to 10.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they'll be abysmal, but do I have a high level of confidence here on April 5th? No.
Right.
I mean, I don't. I mean, not again. Everything has to be tempered with that expectation of.
Right.
And when I talk about Penn State football every year, see, I don't think they're going to the playoff this year. I think 2024 is the year, and I've thought that way for a long time. Because anytime I look at any Penn State football season, you know what the very first thing I look at is? Where's the Ohio State game? Because I don't see them going to Columbus and winning. So if I'm going to judge, any football season, that's kind of priority number one for me. So can you go there and win with what you've got against the Buckeyes there? And that to me is the biggest drawback to 2023. But we think Ohio State's going to be coming to Penn State in 2024. So there's your year.
Yeah, that would really stink when obviously USC UCLA joins if it gets turned around and Penn State has to end up going to Columbus 2 years in a row. That would that would be something that would happen to Penn State.
I think Pat Kraft would have a conniption if something like that happened. I think they'd be storming the Big Ten office.
We'll see. We'll talk Pat Kraft in a second, but I do want to start with the breaking news, Cory. Trey Potts coming to Penn State, transfer from Minnesota. Penn State gets their third scholarship running back. What are your just right off the stove, no pun intended?
Yeah, this literally just happened, I guess, maybe 15, 20 minutes ago or so. And it's good. It's a running back. It's depth. They've got Nick and they've got Katron. So I love Penn State's running back situation anyway for the next 2 years. And again, you're going to hear me say this throughout our entire conversation. This is a 2-year discussion. This is a 2-year window. Everything we talk about is a 2-year process with Drew Aller and Nick and Katron and Abdul Carter and these guys. So is he going to beat out Nick or Katron? No, but it's good depth, and you certainly can't have too much depth at running back in the Big Ten. Just look back to 2021 with Journey Brown, Noah Kane. So it's a nice addition. Kids from Williamsport, that's terrific. I'm not gonna get tremendously excited just yet because he is the third string running back.
Yeah, we're talking special teams, and to me, we hadn't got to kick returner yet, but Nick Singleton's still back there taking kick returns as of right now. Now you feel a little bit better maybe about him doing that because you have a little bit more depth behind him. Yeah,
I think that's a good point. Anytime you have more good players, it allows the starter or whatever to do a little bit more. Looking at Potts' numbers, 1,195 yards, average 5 yards per carry, and that's a run-heavy program, rowing the boat out there. So, but yeah, I would even go along with what you're saying with Nick and allowing them to be able to do different things because they've got some depth. That's the same discussion with Drew Aller, and that's why they're trying to get Bo Prabula as much experience as they possibly can, because you can't go into any of this stuff if your expectation is a Big Ten championship, thinking that you've got one guy that's going to have to carry the load at any position.
All right, let's start there.
I was wondering too, like, what are your thoughts? Is that a real competition, the Aller Pabula thing, or is it?
No, nope, not at all.
I didn't think so either.
If that's a real,
yeah.
Okay, this is the jerk thing to say because it sounds bad about Bo Prabula. But if that's a real competition, then something's gone wrong with Drew Aller. Okay, because with all due respect to Bo Prabula, and this is where I struggle with this a little bit. I started covering Penn State football in 2006. My favorite Penn State player to cover was Matt McGloin, Moxie, 0-star quarterback. So nobody ever expected Matt McGloin to do anything, and he started 7 games in the NFL. My second favorite player to cover was Trace McSorley, who was recruited by no one to be a quarterback other than James Franklin. So I'm not in any way trying to diss Bo Prabula being a 3-star quarterback. The guy might end up being awesome. Kevin Newsom wasn't any good. Paul Jones wasn't any good. Pat Devlin, we never saw play. Rob Bolden was horrific. So these were 4-star guys. So I'm not sitting here saying that Drew Aller is guaranteed to be a superstar, but if Bo Prabula is beating him out, then there's something wrong with Drew Aller more so than I think that Bo Prabula has just crushed it.
How, from what you've seen or heard so far, how do you think Drew Aller's doing? Do you think he's on pace for what your expectations would be? Maybe not what the fan expectations are, but I mean, from what you've heard so far, you think Penn State's in a good shape there?
I do. I mean, you hear everything good about him and his development. You talk to him; he's very poised. He's very mature for a guy that's so young. You can just see the leadership. You can hear the leadership. He just kind of exudes that for a young quarterback. And we didn't get to talk to Drew for the first time until the Rose Bowl because he was obviously a true freshman. So we've been able to speak to him a few times, and he certainly fits the bill from a leadership standpoint. We think he fits the bill from a skill set standpoint with the arm and the size and the physical traits and all of those things. But can he get in the right play before the snap? Can he read the defense when they stunt? I have no idea. None of you guys have any idea. Not a single fan has any idea. And you know what? James Franklin doesn't have any idea. Mike Yurcich doesn't have any idea. We can sit here and say that the next 2 years are their best opportunity to compete for a national championship, probably since the 90s, for a 2-year window, for an extended window. But that's if Drew Aller is living up to all of the hype. And we won't know that until the fall, until we actually see him play games. Because here's the thing. Shawn Clifford did everything right until the play actually unfolded. You see what I'm getting at? Shawn Clifford's a great leader. Shawn Clifford got in the right play. Shawn Clifford could read defenses, but when you needed to throw the ball, well, that's where Shawn Clifford struggled until the end of his career. I want to give Shawn a lot of credit for the way he handled things at the end. But the point being, you can't judge any of these guys until we actually start to see a game.
Well, what about the people he's going to be throwing the ball to? That's probably the biggest question mark on the offensive side of things. At least that's where all the eyes are at for different reasons. Keandre Lambert-Smith obviously finished the season really strong. A lot of younger guys on that roster trying to figure out where they're going to end up as far as the depth chart. And then the 2 new guys, Malik McClain, and then Dante Cephas will be joining him in about a month and a half or so. What do you like so far from what we've heard and read and seen? Keandre Lambert-Smith and Trey Wallace have kind of separated themselves a little bit, at least from James Franklin. Do you think that's fair? And are you a little bit surprised by that this early on for him to be saying those kind of things?
I like the offensive line and the running game. Does that answer? Hey, look.
See what you did there. Yep.
Yeah, you see what I did. I don't think they have a number 1 receiver. I'm not sure Dante Cephas is even a number 1 receiver. And we are in full-blown assume mode that everything will go well with Dante academically at Kent State and everything. He'll go fine. He'll transfer. Let's just make that assumption. Although it hasn't happened yet. He's not at Penn State yet. But yeah, I think Dante can be a very good receiver. I think KLS, the way he finished last year was very promising. Absolutely. He was very inconsistent before that. But do they have a number 1 guy? Again, folks, everything I say comes back to trying to compete for a national championship or get to a playoff. Ohio State, I saw a number the other day. Ohio State's like at some ungodly number of 4- and 5-star wide receiver commits in the last number of years. Well, is Dante Cephas Jackson Smith and Jigba? Is Dante Cephas, Chris Olave? No. And so, again, can Dante Cephas be a nice Mitchell Tinsley kind of Big Ten receiver? And I don't even think Parker Washington was a number 1 legit Big Ten receiver. So that's why I said I like the offensive line and the running game. So, and the tight ends. Because I think they're going to this is going to come on to Mike Yurcich to find a way to get a lot of people involved and not have to rely on needing a Chris Godwin or a KJ Hamler or a Jahan Dotson, one single guy that's going to break down a defense.
Have you heard anything from the young guys, the Saunders, the Evans, the Ivies, the Johnsons? Have any of those guys stepped up to the plate more than any of the other ones, I guess?
Hey, I wish I could say I knew, but all James keeps saying is that KLS and Trey Wallace have separated from the pack, and so now you have everybody else in this group. And so, again, you bring Cephas into the mix, you assume he's going to be the 1 or the 2, and then KLS will be the 1 or the 2, and then Trey Wallace is the 3. I mean, you can be okay with that. You can do a lot of damage with 3 as long as they all stay healthy. So then do you need a fourth? I'm not trying to avoid the question with Saunders or Liam or any of these other guys, but I guess I don't worry about that as much as I do Cephas and KLS living up to legitimate number 1 or number 2 status. Because if Cephas comes in and he's a number 2 and KLS is a number 2 and Trey's a number 3, well, now you don't have a number 1, and the other team's number 1 cornerback is covering your number 2 receiver, essentially, and their number 2 cornerback is basically covering another number. So it gets a little skewed there because you're automatically going to be at a little bit of a disadvantage from a skill set once you go up against an elite level team or a high level team. I don't throw the word elite around very, very often because of what James said 5 years ago.
So. What do you like about this offense? What do you feel good about? That you could say, yeah, we do know right now, April 5th, that this is probably something that is going to be good for Penn State football offensively.
It's not April 1st, so this is not an April Fool's Day. It's raining outside, but I don't think hell is frozen over yet. But I actually think the offensive line is going to be pretty damn good. And so, yes, we're talking about Penn State because that's basically been the biggest question mark 80 to 90% of the seasons. But I think you start there. I think you'll have a good line, which will protect Drew Aller so he's not going to get killed like Christian Hackenberg was. And then you're going to have a good line that can protect the quarterback and can run block, and you've got 2 fantastic running backs. Oh, and those guys are probably going to be used to catch the ball out of the backfield. And you're still going to have a heavy use of the tight end, even though you're losing Brenton Strange. I still think I think James Franklin mandated to Mike Yurcich, you're going to use the damn tight ends. You're going to use the tight ends. 2 years ago, they didn't. And last year they did. And I personally believe that came directly from James, that you're going to get this done. We've got awesome tight ends. And I give credit to Mike Yurcich for making that adjustment. So there's a lot to like about the offense. And as long as Cephas and KLS are good 50 catch receivers or something like that, like we saw with Tinsley and Parker, well, there's a lot to like because they can spread it around a whole lot.
What you got, Shawn?
Yeah, what do you think? What do you make of the right tackle battle right now? I mean, if I had to guess, I would probably say Caden Wallace is still in the lead, even though, we saw how good Drew Shelton was. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, Drew, for a freshman to step into that situation late in the season, that was impressive. I guess I have a little bit of a bias in most things I do in sports. I still kind of give the benefit of the doubt to the older guy. And so maybe it's wishful thinking that you want to see Caden Wallace live up to the potential. He clearly did not last year. I think Caden Wallace has a chance to be really, really good. But he was very inconsistent last year. So my gut would tell me that they will go with Caden and Shelton will be the backup there. And maybe they'll get Shelton some time. You can't necessarily do it a whole lot when you're playing West Virginia right off the bat. But I would tend to think they know more about Caden, good and bad. So they'll give him the first crack at it. But again, I think there's a lot of other good players on that line to where even if Caden struggles a little bit and you can replace him with Drew, you're not talking about a weak offensive line with a bad player. You're talking about a good offensive line with maybe one mediocre player. And you can get by with that.
Yeah, definitely, just to cover things up. Also, just overall on the team, who do you see stepping up as a leader, as the leaders in the locker room? Because going out of last year, that's my biggest concern going into these next 2 years, where I agree with you, they could compete for a national championship conceivably. But I'm like, where are the leaders? Like, they all left. So who do you see maybe stepping up?
I would definitely probably think Kalen King. You're talking about you need your best players to be the leaders. If the third string linebacker is yelling at people, I don't know how many people are listening to that. So I think you need Kalen King, who's a projected first-round pick. You certainly need Drew to be, but that's going to be challenging because he's got to learn everything himself to go through. and he's got to prove himself. You can't just become a leader if you haven't proven anything. He might be a great leader through the spring and the summer. If he comes out and throws 4 interceptions against West Virginia, now who's going to be listening to him? Okay, so and I would tend to say that Singleton could become a leader, but he seems to be more of a quiet guy. So maybe maybe one of the offensive linemen, maybe somebody like if a Landon Tingwall can come back. He seems to be a guy that's pretty comfortable talking and getting guys fired up. I could see Landon Tingwall being a leader. Abdul Carter to me seems to be kind of a quiet guy. So maybe that's 2 of my choices would be a Kalen King, a Landon Tingwall, a Hunter Norzad, somebody like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure as far as like character, but Keandre Lambert-Smith definitely has that outspoken personality to carry that. If he can kind of step into that number 1 role, we'll have to kind of wait and see. It's harder to do that if you're not really the number 1 guy. So
it's right, and it is. I'm just kind of thinking about this off the top of my head. You guys might disagree with this. You don't always see the wide receivers being leaders of teams. Now, it was with Jahan Dotson. Jahan was the leader of that team. That guy was really a heart and soul kind of guy. But I don't know am I wrong? Am I misreading that? How many times do we see wide receivers be either college or pro level?
Not often. I'm trying to think back. Deion Butler comes to mind, but
Deion was, yeah. Jordan
Yeah,
Norwood
those
was.
guys, Derek Williams, but
not often.
Yeah,
they're
overall,
usually too
right,
busy.
yeah.
They're usually too busy bitching about not getting the ball enough.
Well, I want to flip the defense because I think defense is more fun, especially with this defense. Let's start with the good stuff. Abdul Carter seems to just completely have evolved to a new stage of lethal. He's up to almost 250 pounds. He looks phenomenal. I mean, is the hype real? Are we talking about a guy who could potentially be one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten in the country? I mean, and maybe when it's all said and done, one of the best all time at Penn State. I mean, is it hype real?
The first part, absolutely. I mean, I don't talk about Micah Parsons lightly or make any level of comparison, but and obviously they're wearing the same number. But did Abdul miss a tackle last year? I don't think I ever saw Micah miss a tackle at Penn State. I don't think I saw Abdul miss a tackle, and he's always around the ball. Now, Micah is just a very, very, very – Micah could be the best linebacker of all time at Penn State. And, with all due respect to Jack Ham and everything he did, but that's just kind of a different era. But I think it's a little too early to start talking about Abdul with that in that vein, just simply because that's such a high bar. I mean, my first year covering the team, I was so blessed with Paul Posluszny was on that team and Sean Lee and Dan Connor. I mean, you're talking about not only phenomenal football players, but phenomenal leaders as well. So Abdul certainly has a chance to put his name in that group. And I even I'm going to hijack the subject here a little bit. Who's the best Penn State linebacker in the NFL in the last 15 years, other than Micah over the last year? Who's the best Penn State linebacker in the NFL? I'll even go back and include LeVar. 25 years.
Navarro Bowman, I would say.
Navarro Bowman. No question. I think he was 3-time first-team All-Pro. I mean, LeVar wasn't that in the NFL. So, anyway, sorry to hijack that.
Yeah, I would just say Posluszny had a pretty long career,
he did.
though.
Yeah, Paz had a good career, but he was never first-team All-Pro. When you're first team, when you're legitimately one of the 2 or 3 best linebackers in a couple of years, he's probably number 1. I always just like to throw Bowman's name out there because he is one guy that even diehard Penn State football fans don't talk about enough. We do
like a list of we do a Penn State draft. We go through all-time players. We just did running backs earlier before you hopped on. So next week is actually linebackers, as we've actually done most positions now. But the linebackers one is going to be one that we're going to be struggling for because it's impossible. We each get 5 guys. And so it's, people are going to be left off that list. So,
and when you guys do these, do you do them based only on what they do at Penn State, or is some of the criteria NFL?
There's no rules, so it's as whatever we want it to be, right? So, so sometimes we include some NFL stuff. Sometimes, like I was talking about Franco Harris a little bit earlier, And I was like, I got to meet Franco Harris, and he charmed me a bunch. So he didn't make my draft list, but he was up higher on my list because of that alone, right? So just whatever reason, sometimes I think it plays a larger role if we had seen that person play in person, like not just on TV, but literally got to see him play in person and see the game speed. A lot of times makes a difference. But yeah, there's no real criteria. We were like, should we talk criteria? And I'm like, no, just no criteria at all. Whatever list you want.
Those are always interesting because I like to do a lot of history. You guys, one thing I love that what you guys do is you do a lot of the history and the fun outside the box thinking. I'm looking at this. Navarro Bowman was 4-time first-team All-Pro in the NFL. LeVar Arrington was 2-time second-team All-Pro. So LeVar is considered this greatest freak athlete in Penn State and all this stuff. But in terms of the NFL, it's not even remotely close. What Navarro did compared to LeVar or anybody else. I mean, I can make a case that Navarro Bowman is the best linebacker in Penn State history in the NFL. Although you do have to consider Jack Ham. He won the 4 Super Bowls and in a different era.
Yeah, no, it's we have a lot of fun, especially in the offseason, going back and looking at things because there's a lot of things that are forgotten or a lot of positions you kind of forget about people over time. So it's also fun to do that. I want to stick on linebackers though because Curtis Jacobs is still here, played a lot of football now for Penn State. And Manny Diaz, I think, even said a couple of weeks ago, he said it's funny how, the linebacking position was considered a weakness this time last year. And although maybe they don't have a bunch of depth right now, at least your starters you feel pretty good about right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that because that was the big storyline last year, along with the offensive line, as it always was are these linebackers going to be – and then all of a sudden, number 11 shows up and starts kicking butt. And, hey, look, I like Curtis Jacobs. He's a nice college foot player. He's not in the same discussion as what we're talking about with a lot of these other great Penn State linebackers of the last few decades. But if Abdul can be that guy and you get solid play, what you need is consistency from that group. Because I do think the defensive line could be a little bit of I don't want to say an issue. And, again, I'm going to preface this by talking about trying to get to the playoff, all right? Because I think defensive line will be good, but you still need help at the second level, in terms of what you're going to try to do. Here's what I loved about last year's team, and this to me, first of all, I thought Manny Diaz coming back was the number one thing that's happened this offseason. If Manny Diaz leaves, now we've got a lot of different discussions, okay? Number 2 would probably be Olu coming back. But what they were able to do last year was they had shut down guys in the secondary. Joey was a shutdown guy. Kalen was fantastic. And so, and you got Brisker back, or you got Tig back there as well. So Manny Diaz could do whatever the hell he wanted with the first 7 guys, because you could just leave those guys on an island. And I'm not quite sure they're going to have that this year. They do have Kalen King. So that to me, I know you asked about the linebackers, but that's a bigger overarching question of, now, if you have to develop another guy maybe in the secondary or do something for the passing game to stop the passing game, now that's going to impact what you're going to do with your linebacker kind of situation.
Do you see a possibility, and Cory and I both don't want this to happen, but the Mike linebacker spot is concerning to me. Do you see a possibility of moving Abdul Carter inside or no?
I'd rather not. You don't want to in any way limit that guy. Traditionally, maybe, and this was different for different types of defenses. Some defenses, the Mike guy would be the guy who's all over the field making all the plays, but that's not always necessarily the case. So, hey, look, whatever they decide, you've got to free up Abdul Carter to do kind of whatever. You can't pigeonhole him into any scenario because he needs to be like Micah. Can he produce at the same level as Mike? I don't know. But he needs to have the ability to go wherever he needs to go on the field.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that, right? You want him to be able to do kind of whatever he needs to do. A lot of that kind of goes back to being able to play good, stout, up-front defense. Defensive end is looking pretty good depth-wise. Defensive tackle, a little bit more of a question mark. Keziah Izzard's been a little bit banged up this spring. You do have some known faces in Beeman and Devon Ellies, and Franklin, I think, said yesterday that Zane Durant's taken that next step. Vandenberg's there. there's names there, Cory, but do you feel good about those guys heading into the summer? Like good enough to maybe, beat the Michigans or the Ohio States, or do you think they fall short there?
I don't feel bad about them. So I don't know if I can feel good about them until I see them in these kind of higher pressure situations and more guys. Because one thing Penn State's done a great job of over the years is rotating a lot of guys on the line, and they've continued to do that to where even the Alabamas and the Clemsons of the world, they play their starting 4 linemen most of the time. Penn State's advantage is they got 8 guys that they'll rotate in and out. So do I feel good about any of it yet? No, but I don't feel bad. I'm not trying to be pessimistic or whatever, but I don't think there's any reason to be concerned. Typically, we are concerned about the offensive line. Last year, we were concerned about the linebacker. I'm not concerned really about anything on this team. I just think there are certain position groups and players, including the quarterback, that they still have to prove a heck of a lot to us before we can just bestow greatness on them.
Shawn, are you ready to get like more spicy and kind of move away from just the questions regarding the football team?
I'm ready to get spicy here, Cory.
Sweet. Well, I mean, Cory, one of the main reasons we wanted to have you on is because, you've been around for a while. I'm not just trying to call you old, but you also have been pretty critical of what Penn State has been able to do and not been able to in the name, image, and likeness world. And the lack of a strong collective presence, a lack of organization, really. I want to know what you can provide us as far as where Penn State stands from an NIL as a whole, and then where Penn State stands as far as football specifically in the NIL world. Because we hear they're behind, but how far behind? I think it's important to put a true perspective on it.
Okay, this is where things get a little interesting for somebody in my position because as a journalists get told a lot of things off the record. And so you then have to use things as background, and you can say things in a certain way. Like I can sit here and tell you right now that absolutely point blank, I'm 1,000,000% convinced that Penn State has been behind on NIL for football. I have that from, well, the best sources that you can possibly get. Let me just leave it at that. When you have discussions with that doesn't mean I can write it. That doesn't mean I can name anything. And we all have to be very careful when we get into a lot of real specifics here. But the highest people within the Penn State football program are very concerned about NIL. Now it's April. Okay, I'm talking about September, October. Have things changed dramatically in the last 5 or 6 months? That I don't know. Have they gotten substantially better? It's certainly possible. But I know for a fact that the football program has been very, very concerned about the NIL stuff. And I know this is football, but certainly it was clearly an issue in basketball with Micah Shrewsbury talking about that. So, but here's the thing. How much of NIL, guys, is real? How much is a charade, a mirage, a house of cards, even? The $13 million quarterback kid at Florida. What a terrible story. That's terrible. Okay. But how many stories like that are there? We cover Pitt on my website, DK Pittsburgh Sports. And I know Penn State fans hate Pat Narduzzi and Pitt, but Pat Narduzzi he called out the lies a few months ago. He said, there's all this lying going on in NIL. We'll hear all this stuff, about all these numbers and everything. That doesn't mean a shred of it's true. Okay, it doesn't mean any promises that anybody's making to these kids is true. And so if Ohio State, if we think they might be getting $13 million a year, as Ryan Day said they might need, does Penn State have anywhere close to that? No. But does Ohio State have anything close to that? I don't believe so either. So I guess that's the long and short of it is the whole thing is, again, this house of cards, and maybe even a Ponzi scheme is a better way to put it, of who the hell knows what anybody else has got. Penn State doesn't know what Ohio State's got or Michigan's got or Alabama's got. We can hear stories about it, but And they don't know what Penn State's got. And quite frankly, James Franklin, why would James Franklin come out and say, hey, we're doing great? Why would he do that? It benefits James Franklin or any other coach to say, we're really struggling. Really struggling. So I need more. Why would he come out and say we're doing great? You guys follow what I'm saying? You play the card as long as you can because you always want more. James Franklin always wants more in everything.
So everybody's going to say they're behind until the end of time, and then it's
right,
just a continuing cycle saying, "Oh, we're behind. We need more money again." Yeah.
Apple probably. I think Apple's got like trillions of dollars in cash. They'll probably plead, "Woe is me. We need more." I mean, that's just human nature.
Right. Let's just assume that Penn State still is behind, like truly behind. Is it just because of lack of leadership in those collectives themselves? Is it lack of attention or marketing from the athletic department to get those collectives out there? Is it just Penn State fans just don't know about it, or they just don't want to do it? I guess like you probably talk to your readers and your listeners to some degree. If Penn State's truly behind, is it a fundamental issue with the collective? Is it a fundamental issue with the athletic department, or is it just a fundamental issue with Penn State fans?
I would say that there are 25 elements to this that all come into play for different people. I got a buddy, they spend $6,000 on their 4-season tickets. They got no more money to give it NIL. Okay. How many people fall into that category? Yeah, you got 107,000 fans. How many of them are spending all they can, all their income or their entertainment income on the tickets and the tailgate? Okay. It's not like, I mean, Penn State's got all these fans in the alumni base. How many ultra rich millionaires do they have? All right. Or this is central Pennsylvania. Okay. And they're having fans come in for Harrisburg and all over the state too. But how many of these are middle, upper middle class folks in a lot of cases, maybe lower upper. And after they spend their $6, $8, $10, $12, $15,000 on their tickets and parking and tailgate, do they all have another $5,000 to give? Okay, so that's one. That's one out of 25 different things. Okay. 2 is Terry Pegula gave him $100+ million for hockey and an arena. You can't go back to him. Ira Lubert, for all we know, got them Cale Sanderson. How much can he really contribute every single time you need something? They need to spend $500 million at least, maybe a whole lot more on the stadium, which is a dump. Okay. I've been completely outspoken about that. The stadium inside is phenomenal. It's a great experience, the best experience in college football. Underneath, it's a dump. Outside, it's a dump. It needs all kinds of money. Where's that money coming from? Micah Shrewsbury complained about basketball needing money. Where's that money coming from? All right. James Franklin wants more money for NIL. Where's that money coming from? You don't have an endless supply of money in this world. And so if you need money for 25 different things and you want to have 31 sports, that's another component. They are hell-bent on having 31 sports. Okay, well, all but 3 of them lose money. Football makes $50 million. Men's basketball makes $4 million. And hockey makes a few $100,000 because they've got an endowment. Everything else loses money. Women's basketball loses $3 to $4 million. Okay, you're going to take $1 million or $2 million away from women's basketball to put it into football NIL, or I know it's different budgets and everything, but I'm talking about just in terms of where priorities come in play. You see what I'm getting at? I can go on with 25 different things here that they've got to spend money on. The Jordan Center is still not a great basketball facility. They could put more money in there. Where's all the money come from? That's my biggest answer on all of this. They can all talk about needing more, but Alabama doesn't need to spend more than $500 million to upgrade its football stadium. Nor does Ohio State, nor does Michigan, nor does Clemson, nor does LSU. That to me is one element that puts Penn State in a very different discussion on all of this compared to a lot of its peers at that elite or second tier level.
Okay, well, let's go to there then, right? Let's talk rebuild, renovate. We've heard a lot more renovate lately. Do you have any news on that front?
Well, they're going to renovate. I mean, they are not ever going to go below 100,000. That's who they are. I drove my kids by the stadium. It's the 4th largest stadium in the world, guys. Wow, 4th largest in the world. That's what Penn State is. They want 100,000 people. If they were to build another 107,000 seat stadium, it might cost $3 billion. It might cost $4 billion. I mean, who the hell knows? Pat Kraft even said in December, nobody's building a 100,000 seat stadium. It's just not happening. They're not going to go to 98,000 and start charging people a whole lot more. So I don't see that. And it would just be unbelievably expensive. So what I think they're going to do, and I've heard from some people that think that this is a good idea, is over the course of a year to 18 months, you do 1/4 of the stadium. You shut it off and you do 1/4 and you make it brand new. And then the next year to 18 months, you do it with another quarter. And next year to 18 months, you do it with another quarter. And then after 5 or 6 years, you've got essentially a brand new stadium. You've just done it in pieces. And in each of those years, maybe you got to settle for 75, 80,000 capacity for some football games. I don't know. That's very high level economics and everything. But that to me seems like one of the most feasible scenarios.
What do you think the priority should be in a renovation then?
Well, okay, this is not really fair for me to say because I've never attended Penn State as a fan for a football game. I've always been in the press box. So my opinion on this really should not matter a lot. Everybody I know says that they're very uncomfortable, that you're crammed in there like sardines, and it is extremely uncomfortable. You guys can speak to that if that's true or not. So to me,
oh yes,
comfort, space would be one. But if you want to have 107,000 people, you kind of have to give up that comfort. So to me, that would be one. So it's hard. I can only speak to this from a journalist standpoint. With what I see, fans are probably going to want to gripe about very different things. And I just don't have a lot of perspective on that because that's not really impacted me from that standpoint.
Let's talk Patrick Kraft. I thought Patrick Kraft said all the right things when he first got hired at Penn State. I think he's really resonated with a lot of the fans with how outspoken he is, how passionate he is at sporting events. In December, he was, pretty clear that he wanted to keep Micah Shrewsbury. What are your thoughts of Patrick Kraft as a whole after what at least I called him kind of failing his first test with being unable to retain Shrewsbury? You still think he's the right guy for the job? And did your point of view or your opinion of him change at all since he wasn't able to hold on to Shrewsbury?
I think that's a very interesting thing. And just so you guys know, and I'm going to just, blow smoke, I do think you guys do a tremendous job. I think your opinions are really good. I completely disagree with what you said there about Shrewsbury, that has anything to do with Patrick Kraft. Micah Shrewsbury would have been a damn idiot to not take that Notre Dame job. I don't know that there's anything in the world Patrick Kraft could have done. I've got people telling me they offered him more than $4 million a year. All right. Penn State's been to 10 NCAA tournaments ever. Notre Dame's been to 37. Notre Dame was in the Elite Eight in 2015 and 16. Penn State basketball had one nice year. He was going to lose his whole team. There was a chance that they might be horrible next year. And then Micah Shrewsbury never gets. Micah Shrewsbury made his career in 3 weeks. They were 5-9 in the Big Ten. Okay, so I'm going to go back. This could take a little bit of time, but I thought Sandy blew it because she got involved with James Franklin's contract extension in September when the USC job came open. So she started negotiating with James when Penn State's 5-0 and inside the top 5 and all that. Well, then they collapsed, and then Sandy's hands were tied because she had already made all these commitments to James Franklin over the course of 2 to 3 months. Okay, you follow what I'm saying? Connect the dots. But that's because they had a lot of time. They had a lot of time to have negotiations. And for a good bit of that time, the Penn State football team was doing great. Okay. Conversely, Micah Shrewsbury was failing. With 3 weeks to go in the season, he was failing. Okay. And I challenge anybody to dispute that. He had an All-American. He had 5 1,000-point scores, and he was 5-9 in the Big Ten. He was failing. Why on earth would Patrick Kraft be doing, trying to move heaven and earth to get him a contract extension at that point, Cory? See what I'm saying? In 3 weeks, the whole thing changed, and Micah Shrewsbury became better than Penn State basketball. That's just the reality. He goes from 5-9 to having one phenomenal 3-week period, And now Patrick Kraft, what's he going to? He offered him $4+ million. At least we think he did. They're paying Mike Rhodes 3.7. So I'm pretty sure that number is accurate. So I guess to say this, I think personally, Patrick Kraft has done an absolutely unbelievable A+++ job. And so if you disagree with that, I'm willing to have this debate with anybody because, again, lost in the shuffle of all this basketball stuff is that Micah Shrewsbury was failing when they were 5-9 in the Big Ten. And it took a three-pointer from Cam Winter at Northwestern to win that game. And then it took a miracle for the offensive rebound to fall directly into Cam Winter's hands against Maryland for him to do the offensive putback at half second to go. Now they aren't 9-11 in the Big Ten, which would have been really tough to get in. Now they're 10-10. So, I mean, everything in the world that could have gone right for Penn State basketball and down the stretch kind of went right for Micah Shrewsbury. And I'm not going to blame that on Patrick Kraft not being able to retain him. So that's my position, Cory. And I do respect your opinion if you disagree with that. Why?
Was Patrick? It's easy for me. Was Patrick Kraft at the Texas game in the second round game? That's
fascinating because they won a national champion. Now we can split hairs here. They wrapped up the national championship at 12-1. He absolutely could have left. Okay, so I will grant you that he could have left,
even if it wasn't wrapped up.
Now, man, you got to be at the national. He's an AD. That's his first national championship. You have the premier sports program in this entire coury in any sport.
That's fine.
I believe you've got to be at the national championship.
Then send the president, because both of them were both at wrestling. They didn't both need to be there. You just listed the last time Penn State did this in the Sweet 16, and this is historic. At this point that people are contacting Shrewsbury. You make an effort. You make a point to be there. And he wasn't there. Even if I'm not saying that makes a difference in the long run, probably not. I agree with you. It wasn't probably going to make a difference. But optically, it wasn't the right decision. At least, maybe not him. Someone else has to be there.
I just cannot disagree with you more. If you're winning a national championship, your AD has to be there. Yeah. Now, again, he could have left at 1 o'clock after it was mathematically wrapped up. I get that. If you're not at a national championship game, and I would just say this, even if he's there, you can't convince me that Micah Shrewsbury was not going to Notre Dame anyway. He would have been a damn fool. He's from Indiana. His first coaching job was in South Bend at a small school. Everything about Micah Shrewsbury was, and by the way, Penn State was losing its entire damn team. Okay. And Micah Shrewsbury probably knew there was a possibility they could go 13-17 next year. And now so I can't convince myself that anything Patrick Kraft could have done, short of offering him $7 million or something outrageous, I just don't know that anything he could have done would have been enough to convince Mike.
Yeah, I'm not saying it necessarily would have, right? But I don't think he did everything that he could have, right? That's all I'm saying. I agree with you. I don't think it makes a difference at the end, but that still doesn't mean he did everything he was supposed to do the right way. Shawn, what you got?
Well, I mean, I think the larger thing is, like Cory Giger, you said that you think he's done an A++ job. What has he done to earn that, though? Because my whole concern with him right now is it all style? Like, I need some more substance with Patrick Kraft. So
I think that's pretty fair.
What makes you give him an A+?
He does come across as a cheerleader. Okay, I'll definitely grant you that, and he speaks big. We believe, because these numbers are not released, we believe that in 2017, Patrick Chambers was making $900,000 a year. The next basketball coach is going to make 4 times that much. I believe Patrick Kraft made a statement, and the school made a statement with that commitment. First of all, now look, this goes back to Sandy. I was critical of Sandy earlier. I do want to give Sandy credit. She did believe in James Franklin, and now James has earned that. She hired Micah Shrewsbury. She gets credit for that. For $2 million, by the way. So you're going, I believe the way the time frame works, and this could be within a year or two, Chambers got up to $1 million around 2018. Okay. It wasn't until 2018 that Penn State paid $1 million for its basketball coach. The next guy's going to get almost $4 million. How can you not give Patrick Kraft credit for spearheading that change?
That's very fair because
I would
when
say
you-
Jalen Pickett spearheaded it more than anyone else did.
Booty ball spearheaded it.
True. Yeah. When we lost Trues, I mean, obviously we were all bummed and everything. And Cory Giger, you don't know this, but I absolutely despise Notre Dame with every fiber of my being. So it really upset me that he went to Notre Dame. But I said after it's going to be a huge test for Patrick Kraft to find the next head coach and get it right.
Yeah.
And I thought they had to do a national search. And honestly, Mike Rhodes is probably the best we were going to do. So I will at this time, yes. So I will concede that, yes, that's something that is I mean, it sucks we lost Shrewsbury, but he did sort of make up for it with hiring a guy who coming in did more than any coach ever at Penn State coming in the door.
Yeah, you had to get the best coach you could within a week or two period. I literally know of no one else of name recognition that interviewed. I mean, I think they talked to Joe Christman, maybe, but Mike Rhodes' name is the only one that really came up. And so it's not like when Chambers was ousted in October and Jim Ferry was the interim coach and they had 5 months to do a national search. They had to get this stuff done quickly. And again, I'll go back to my 5 and 9 component. It's not even like now, yeah, I guess they probably could have known because Mike Bray was ousted really pretty early on this. I don't know the time frame, maybe January, I don't know, February. Maybe they all should have had the foresight there to think that Micah could leave. But at 5 and 9, what would you have been losing? Again, I cannot overstate that. At 5 and 9, you can't promise the guy the moon. So they had a very short window to come up with the best coach they could get. And I do think Mike Rhodes was probably that guy. Now, is Mike Rhodes one of the 5 best coaches in the Big Ten? Nope, not at all. Next year, if they knew they could go find somebody, could they hire a better coach than Mike Rhodes? Absolutely. Is Mike? Mike Rhodes might be the 40th or 50th best coach in college basketball. I don't know. Maybe 50, 60, 70. I don't know. But he's not 5 or 10 or 15 or 20. And so to pay $4 million a year, yeah, you could probably have gotten somebody better than Mike Rhodes, but you couldn't have gotten that. There was nobody available like that right now. Ed Cooley went to Georgetown. I mean, Ed Cooley had a hell of a lot of success at Providence. If you followed Providence is a tough place to win. Well, it's a tough place to win at a very high level. He was probably candidate number 1 out there. And so the fact that they got Mike Rhodes, I give Patrick Kraft credit for that. And you guys notice I get more fired up talking college basketball than football. I love college
Syracuse
basketball.
fan in you. That's why.
Yeah, it's absolutely my favorite sport. I'm far more passionate about these subjects than I am anything college football.
Shawn, what else do you have for Cory?
I did not know you're a Syracuse basketball fan. That's very interesting because I'm from Scranton. Jerry McNamara's from Scranton, and he's, McNamara's band's a big thing. So his high school closed. I actually went to the high school that it merged into. So I'm 49. I was growing up in Arkansas, and in 1985, Pearl Washington hit a half-court shot to beat Boston College. I just happened to see a highlight on ESPN. I'd never heard of Pearl Washington. I'd never heard of Syracuse. But then the next time they were on TV, a day or two later, I watched. And in the 80s, Syracuse was on national TV 20, 25 times a year. So that's how I became a Syracuse fan. And in all my life, Shawn, I was a Chicago Cubs fan growing up. That didn't work out too well. I was a Miami Dolphins fan. I'm a Dolphins fan too.
All right. I've had one team win a championship in my entire life. And I was standing right over there in my living room when Kirk Heinrich missed the 3-pointer and Syracuse beat Kansas, and I started bawling. In my entire life, that's the only team of mine that's ever won a championship in any sport.
Yeah, that was an awesome year as an 8-year-old, just watching this guy who was just at Hannon just dominate. I mean, he was dominant in the first half. So I think he still has the record for most threes in the first half.
18 points, had 6 threes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you to just get back to football a tad here. New spring edition. So a lot of spring enrollees. Which one have you been hearing the most buzz about?
You know what? That's hard to know because I can only go with what James has what James has talked about really, and I wouldn't necessarily say, you guys may disagree, but I wouldn't necessarily say that anybody that he's come out and said, hey, this guy's really standing out. I'm struggling with that, just trying to go back on all the times we've talked to him, what we've heard. That's usually what this time for these next couple of weeks going into the blue-white game is for. So I don't necessarily say I've got an answer for that one, really. I mean, Jackson Smolik is one high-profile guy. He keeps talking about Jackson is doing good things. But other than that, I can't necessarily say I've heard him say much of anything about many early guys.
Yeah, we heard that Tony Rojas put on some serious weight.
He talked last night about Rojas and Tamir Robinson, and that was the first time I think he had really discussed. What did he say? Rojas put on 29 pounds?
Yeah, that's what I got.
Won't stop eating. That's pretty good. But I'm looking forward to maybe some more of these interviews here over the next week or two. Maybe we'll get more insight on some of these guys.
What I'm curious from like your perspective, what do you try to focus on during the blue and white game, right? So a lot of people, it's not a lot of people can't get a lot out of those games. It's a glorified scrimmage most of the time. Franklin did say he hopes it's going to be more of a true game this year than last year. But from your perspective, what are you looking to see during the blue and white game, or what are you trying to keep an eye on?
I would say this, and this is true for most of my tenure covering Penn State. There have always been very interesting storylines with the quarterbacks. All right, so I am very much a big picture kind of guy. I'm not a huge recruiting guy, so I'm not watching a lot of freshmen. A lot of reporters and fans want to know about the next young guy. And it's not. I'm going to sit here and tell you how are they going to win a national championship, and that's because Drew Aller's going to have to play well. So I probably watch the football more, and I do try to take something. Not so much, if the quarterback is crushing it or not, running barely any plays, but I want to watch the quarterback, how poised he is, how accurate he is. I think accuracy, because remember, Drew wasn't real accurate in the spring game last year. He threw a couple interceptions. One of them might have been tipped, but I don't think he was real accurate. And so I want to see some accuracy. I want to see some touch on some shorter passes. I want to see Bo Prabula be able to throw the ball, because we have not heard anything about Bo throwing the ball. Would you guys agree with that? Everything as well. Bo can bring this. We got a different package. I want to see him throw the ball. Okay. So, not that it's the be all end all of what's going to happen in the fall, but this program's success for the next 2 years is going to depend on the quarterback. So I'll be heavily focused on those guys.
Absolutely. Well, before we let you get out of here, I am curious, I guess, what are your plans for the summer? What do you plan to cover or to focus in on, or what do you do during the summer to prepare yourself for the season ahead?
I like to personally just kind of look at a lot of other teams around the country. One thing I've always tried not to do covering Penn State is just live in the Penn State bubble of, oh, hey, Penn State does this well, so now we can expect these things to happen. You can't do that unless you look at other teams. I really study the Big Ten very, very strongly. I take a huge look at Ohio State and Michigan every year. I try to get as familiar as I can with those teams, and then everybody else on the schedule. Michigan State this year, I'll be looking at West Virginia, because I don't think you can just say, Penn State's going to do this because they've got all these good players. Well, the other guys are on scholarship too, and they got good coaches who make money. And so I do my very best to try to familiarize myself throughout the summer with who they're going to play and what it's going to take to beat certain kinds of styles or what have you in the fall.
So when you come back, we'll have you back in the summer, at the end of summer, and then you can just fill us in on all what we should be looking for every team in Penn State's schedule. We'll be set.
Well, Ohio State's going to have a pretty good quarterback, and they're going to have awesome wide receivers. I know that. We can kind of jump from there.
Yeah. Shawn, anything else for you?
Yeah. Are you more concerned about Michigan or Ohio State?
That broke up for right when you were finishing that, Shawn. What was that again?
Oh, my bad. Are you more